Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chennard. I'm here with Tyler Jones and Glen Willis. We're recording on a Thursday night. We actually postponed the start of our recording to watch the end of the Knicks Pistons. I was gonna say game, but really series too. Any thoughts on what you saw at the end there?
I mean, I still think about that non-foul call on the shot in the corner. Hardy's 81% free throw shooter. So this, I mean, could say this game should be going to series should be going to game seven if they get that call right. I do think that's a really hard call to see. Like it is hand, like contact of the hand, arm, very easy to see. Contact of the body is hard to see. But for me, my reflection is, I mean, what a great season for the Pistons. Like what a tremendous, huge step forward for that organization. They got some young guys that are really, good core pieces to build around. They have to upgrade like the THJ spot. They need more than what Beasley gives. That and they know that. Coming out of what did they win? 16 games last year. You're not going to attract free agents coming off of a 16, but they're in a place now where I think they're a compelling consideration for guys to want to go play for a team that's kind of on the rise. And so I just think they have a ton to be proud of this year, and and I think Pistons fans have a lot to be excited about. You know, Brad and Lauren and I did a preview on for my Patreon. We talked, and Lauren Gunn said that the Knicks would have their hands full with the Pistons, and she was exactly right. Right, they did have to have their hands full this whole series. And I thought the Pistons just competed really well. Let's see how much gas in the tank the Knicks have for a series with Boston because as we know, Tibbs plays a short rotation. This guy's played a ton of minutes, and we'll look forward to that one.
I didn't like Bickerstaff taking out Osar Thompson and with like 3 minutes left. I think you just let him play there. Like Brent, he also like he did a coach's challenge with a couple minutes left when it looked like Brunson was kind of gassed, and I felt like he was giving Brunson a catch to chances to catch up on his wind when the Knicks were trying to play from behind. And I didn't really like that either. I don't know.
Yeah, I think all coaches have this little gene in them that when it gets down to the end of the game, they tend to want to go to the veteran and shoot the shooter, in that case, and I think it's something they have to overcome because I mean he was doing a great job on him. That last play aside where he kind of lost his balance and all of that, he was doing a great job. But I do think it's a trap many NBA coaches put themselves in, feeling like I have to go to the veteran in a close game at the end of the game, and I think they overdo it in a lot of cases. And this is one example I think where JB could have gone a different direction.
And it just like it's not a separate complaint. I'm not saying Jalen Brunson flops, but it feels a little bit unfair to me the whistle that he gets combined with like what he did on that last play. Like he had a
Yeah,
full arm bar across the hip on a bicep. Like it wasn't even on a hip. Like he got the hip and the bicep. It's like fine. Like if you want to play 90s style basketball where you're gonna let the defender do a little bit, then you can let the offensive player do that. But you can't let him have every little nudge whistle on a drive where he falls backwards and then give him the full arm bar to go with it. Like you got to pick one or the other. Like
Right?
it seems a little bit the game is a little bit rigged if you're going to let him have both.
Yep.
I don't know.
Just frustrating.
So, but it was a really good series, and like Duran, like it's incredible how much he got better in the season. Like
Yep. Yeah.
just
He still
wow.
got some stuff to clean up defensively for sure. But you're right, he improved a ton this year.
he leaned in more on what he's good at and kind of let go of the rope a little bit on like the experimental dribbling stuff he was doing on offense. He kept it more simple on the offensive end and defensively. Well, he's not perfect still, but when a center starts to get it, you notice it. And I feel like he's matured in a way where he's taking up space more smart, like better as a positional defender, and he's not like looking like a young guy out there. So I just think he's just maturing, and his natural size and gifts gives him a lot of leeway already. So it's good to see that he finally figured it out. Because I mean, I think a big reason for the Pistons like explosion the second half of the season was his improvement, along with the Star Thompsons and
Yeah, and then Kevin,
And Malik Beasley never missing a jump shot.
and Kevin, I know you've made this point several times, but the Schroeder addition was huge for them,
Oh
just
yeah,
huge. I mean, CHJ is not a ball handler and a creator. Beasley isn't, so having another guy that you could put out there, that was he made a big impact in this series. Just having another ball handler, another trustworthy, stable, steady ball handler. That was a big addition for them. I know a lot of Hawks fans commenting like, "Man, he could have helped the Hawks," and I think they're right. I think they're
yeah,
absolutely
Yeah,
right.
it's
yeah,
crazy. It really is. Like, and defense too. Like he's for the Pistons, he's a better on-ball defender than anything you're going to get out of Beasley or DHJ. So it's just, he really did a lot for them. All right. Hawk stuff. Uh any lingering postscripts? I know you were kind of short on time the last couple of episodes. And any things kind of leftovers from the season that you want to get out there?
I think we've hit those themes well. It's like more size, more physicality, more shooting, and we know they need more ball handling, and creation and things like that. And so we talked about that all season long. And the lack of size, lack of physicality, you get down to April, where I mean March, late March into April, where all teams are on fumes. I mean, every team is on fumes at that point. When you go into a game and you are the smaller team, when you go into a game, you're the physical team, it just exasperates that factor for you. And that's why the Hawks, I think, kind of really struggled down at the end. It's why it was a big factor why they lost both of both of the playing games that they were in. But I don't think we're saying anything that the Hawks don't know. They saw it happen just like we did. And Quinn talked about it. Quinn now and then would talk about size and things like that. So that's what I'm looking for them to do. And it's going to be interesting to see if they actually hire a new president of basketball operations. What's going to happen with the outcome there? Timing of that is interesting. We're not that far away from the draft, and you have to kind of hold together a process and a group that's going to be decision makers about that. Two picks coming there. So for me, it's like I felt like the last 6 weeks of the season we just kept seeing. It's like watching reruns, on late night TV. It was the
yeah.
same experience over and over again.
Any we talked about the Hawks being on fumes and losing those two playing games. And any thoughts from the two series from the teams that did advance? Anything from Orlando, Boston, or Miami, Cleveland? Are you glad that the Hawks didn't go into Cleveland and get shredded by 60 points in the closeout game or anything like that?
I think the Hawks could have potentially matched up better with the Cavs just for this reason alone. They just have like they even though they're limited, they have a lot of talent, offensive talent in particular. Whereas the Miami Heat are just they're really dead in the water with what they're doing. Like they're asking Davion Mitchell to play point guard. Tyler Hero is not a number one option on any serious NBA team. Not to say he's not a good player, but there's just a gulf of difference when you're asking somebody of that caliber to be the guy on offense and generate good offensive process for your team. And Bam, for as good as overall player Bam is, like offense is not his strength. And I think he's just to me, it just feels like he's been tasked with way too much on the offensive creation side where he needs to play with better basketball players. It's kind of my big point with Bam. Like he's just overtasked with what the Heat are asking, and they need more talent, but I don't know how they do it. And then the Magic, like if you match up with their size, they have nothing. Like even though
No, they
Bankero,
can't shoot. They can't shoot. They have no real offensive capability in their backcourt. Cole Anthony, is just a tiny can like 3 games a month. Cole Anthony will just go kind of really do his thing, but that's not
yeah,
enough. So
it's if I'm a Magic fan, I'm frustrated that they didn't do anything last offseason because they could have hit some pressure points. They could have got found some like real shooting to pair with Bankero instead of, not to say Kentavious Caldwell Pope isn't a good shooter, but there's a level of, he's a good catch and shoot guy. They need somebody to really have real gravity for them so that it can take pressure off of Bankero. Because Bankero, I'll give Bankero this. His drives are like top tier. Like something, and he's constantly getting 2 feet in the paint, but there's like no outlet for him. And uh for him, or and Franz, I don't know what happened to his jump shot. Like it, I think some I don't know what's going on with him, but like he has like this weird hitch now in his jumper. So hopefully he can get that cleaned up, because I mean he's a better shooter than what he showed towards the end of the season. But like if you're a Magic fan, I would be frustrated and be like, Peyton Pritchard was readily available in free agency, and like I understand Peyton Pritchard has his flaws, but they could have really used a point guard of that level of shooter who could have just made life so much easier for them as a team, because they're closer than what people think, but it's hard to find these types of players. Ty Jerome is going to be available. It'll be interesting to see what Ty Jerome number comes at, but like that's probably somebody the Magic should be looking after, because even though they've drafted a bunch of point guards, those guys are not offensive. They can't shoot, and so it just makes life so much harder than it has to be for them.
Uh, with the Damian Lillard injury and the Bucks going out against the Pacers, there's sort of wild, potentially irresponsible speculation, but like the speculation being of the form, where does Giannis want to go? Like, do you anticipate that will be something that he's going to do? Is he kind of a loyalist? He's going to be. At times, it feels like he's a stubborn kind of. I'm just going to stick this out. We'll figure it out. Or do you think he's going to realize, okay, like we don't have a draft pick from now till forever. It's just going to be too hard. Maybe he doesn't want to go somewhere.
Can I think the harder part is that there's like no way. The only teams that can give the Bucks equal value, I'm not sure Giannis turns those teams into immediate contenders, right? The closest is probably the Rockets, but they don't have the shooting or the ball creation. Like you would just be replicating what's going on with Milwaukee. So they're kind of. I think not only the Bucks are stuck. I think Giannis is sneakily stuck in a way, just because the Bucks don't have access to their own picks. So why would they take players instead of picks? You know, when if they trade Giannis, like it's going to be real bad. But I mean, they struggled this season. Like they were a sneaky, not very good team. Um, the entirety of the season. It was really Dame and Giannis's excellence that propelled them. But like their foundation is just it. If you want to look in the Hawks' perspective, it's why it's very important that you draft talent. Like you have to supplement your elite stars with other guys that you draft, that you have control over, that you have, you know, easier ways to re-sign, and that they're in the same age range. The Bucks, I feel like, just ran into the problem of their best players were always older than Giannis, and they couldn't get anybody younger to pair with him. And like trading Drew Holiday really hurt them, because they needed to add a Dame to a Drew instead of trading Drew Holiday for Dame Lillard, because all it did was trade one issue for another. And they couldn't replace Drew Holiday, and the entire kind of foundation of their team kind of collapsed, combined with other guys getting older and stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's to me interesting. For anyone, for anyone to pretend like they know what Giannis is going to decide he wants to do is crazy, right? Yeah, Giannis knows. There's a few things there. The one is Giannis just, I mean, I don't know him personally. Obviously, I never met him, but just when you see him in his media availability, he just seems like kind of a salt of the earth, really grounded person, you know. And in that case, he might want to feel committed to that community and that team and that organ. That might be a thing that he decides that he wants to do. On the other side, I see maybe there's something I'm not seeing, but I see no path to fixing that roster. Like none.
No.
Like
Yeah.
absolutely zero path to fixing that roster. And Giannis might decide, hey, this has been a great run. We want to, it's great that he won a championship there. Always a little easier to walk away when you have that experience there. There has to be a better situation for him if they can figure it out. But that's not for anyone to decide really, but for him, in terms of what it is that he wants to prioritize. And between now and July, I'm sure there'll be news and fake news and half fake news and spin and things kind of put into the media to create all sorts of messaging and stuff like that. But come early July, I presume we'll have some clarity on what it is he wants to do.
I will say this about Giannis, 'cause I don't think his situation is relatively unique to him. I think Anthony Davis is in a similar situation in Dallas.
Yep.
I think Kevin Durant is in a similar situation in Phoenix, where there's no like clear cut way for these guys to go. Well, KD had one. It was just to go to Golden State, and he's decided no. But like those three guys in particular, like they're on the other side of 30. I mean, they're 30 plus now. If their goal is to win a title, I mean, unless you're going to join OKC, and OKC keeps a lot of their core. Like considering just how wide open the NBA is right now outside of OKC and Boston, like I don't know where these guys go. Like where it'd be like it's going to be demonstrably better. I mean, Phoenix will be because Phoenix is a disaster, but Dallas and Dallas and Milwaukee, they have similar kind of constraints right now, and I'm not sure what the pathways for them combined with the Lakers. Like, what is LeBron going to do? So, I mean, this free agency is going to be. I mean, this offseason is going to be pretty fascinating. Considering, I think it's less on the teams and more of like, what do these players ultimately want to do with the remainder of their career? I think is kind of more of the symbolic thing. I could totally see Giannis um, picking his destination. Like if there's somewhere he wants to go, there's some player he wants to play with. I could see that, but I could also see him, like Glenn said, just being like, I'm gonna ride it out with the Bucks. Like I signed this contract for this many years, and they've been good to me and my family. Like I'm gonna reward that loyalty by sticking through, and hopefully the Bucks organization figures out a pathway forward. So even though we don't see a pathway for contention, like there's always, you never know. You find somebody, something comes up, you luck into a draft pick, and that guy turns out to be just the missing piece. So,
Like Giannis.
yeah, like yeah, honestly, or like Jalen Williams,
Yeah.
for OKC, who was what the 13th pick. You
Yeah.
know, that's a reasonable pick to acquire with the pieces that you have, and if you luck into a guy that could completely change the prospect of your current organization. But it's really like AD and Giannis in particular. Like it's going to be really fascinating to me because their co-stars are currently out for extended period of time. What they think they should do or where they want to be to finish the rest of their careers.
I think a sneaky boss, the sneaky team is Boston
Oh yeah, yeah,
because if Milwaukee wants guys that are right in their prime, but the Celtics, Drew's not what he was 2 years ago. Not even close. And Porzingis is not always going to give you 70 games a year, and for luckily for Boston they don't really need it. They can take manage him, load manage him, all that sort of stuff. But there aren't many teams that could say, hey, here's two really good players. You can kind of start to kind of rebuild around and things like that. I can't really think of other teams that have it unless the Bucks do decide we want draft capital. Then you look at OKC, you look at Houston's in a good spot there, Brooklyn's in a good spot there. I think those are the three. Kind of Utah has a lot of picks, but I can't imagine that seems like a weird place to, be honest, to want to land himself. And so I mean, if they pull the trigger, I mean, Milwaukee, I think will have to decide: do we want a couple of really good players plus some picks, or do we just want to like strip it bare, and start this 3 to 4 year process to try to build it back up. But it wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't surprise me at all to see Boston get in the mix if Giannis decides he wants to
I
change.
I will say Boston's a sneaky team in all of this because there are a lot of smoke coming out, real reports that
Yep.
they have to cut salary. So there's going to be a lot of interest. Again, this offseason is going to require for a lot of teams to be on their toes to maximize what's available because you got to kind of piece Matt figure out like what X team is doing here, what Y team is doing here, and how can we benefit from that. So like that's something the Hawks, in their organization, who I'm pretty sure they're going to be on top of this because they got 18 billion. They still have 18,000 vice presidents of basketball operations, but or assistant GMs, whatever,
I imagine
whatever the
imagine the
title.
draft pick process is like when you're picking a new pope. You pull them all
Yeah,
into
the
it.
conclave. Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you partially answered this question, but like, um, I'm not asking you for what you think Giannis will do, but I'm asking you to put yourself in his shoes. If you're him looking around the league thinking, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go finish my career? Like Glenn mentioned Boston. Is that the spot? Is there some other spot where if you were Giannis and you're looking across the league and saying, where do I want to go? Like what are the spots that you think would be prime destinations?
The Clippers. Just because they have a lot of wings who can shoot, just built in, and James Harden's there, Kawhi's there. I don't know how that would work, but like that's one. Golden State again, even though they just traded for Jimmy Butler, uh, they really do need somebody like Giannis. They need somebody who can put pressure at the rim and finish at the rim consistently as a bigger size player. That is the one where there's been a lot of smoke that Giannis wants to play with Steph Curry. So if if I'm Giannis, because like Giannis is not gonna, I think Giannis has the right to dictate where he wants to go, and I would guess it would be play with Steph Curry or stay in Milwaukee, like because like he's going to want to play with another star. I, I just I just think I just think if we're being realistic here, so that Giannis is if he decides, I think to me, I think if I'm him, I'm like I'm playing with Steph, and I'm trying to you know get Steph one last ride here. Um, Maybe that means trade Draymond, who knows? But that's where I'm heading if I'm Giannis.
Do you feel the same
Yeah, I
way,
mean, it's
Glenn?
hard. Yeah, it's hard to see, but like, how wild would it be if he landed in San Antonio, right? Um, they have a lot of picks. Him and Wimby together would be pretty rough to deal with. Don't know how much interest he has, but and it helps that Wimby likes to play past the 3 point line, so it's not like they're going to be in each other's offensive space there. Miami always weirdly has a draw, but their roster is very uninteresting right now. I don't see why that's where he would want to land there. I mean, they probably have to trade Bam and Hero to get Giannis, and then what what do you have? So I feel like the Spurs are kind of interesting. Like I mentioned Boston, but Miami has a way of kind of getting themselves in the mix and everything. And I don't know if that's the Pat Riley charm or is that still a thing? I don't know. Is that still a thing? I don't know. Um, Oklahoma City just seems like a weird kind of fit for me. That it would be a massive change. Giannis, the way they play right now, Giannis can't play the way that they play right now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and then I do worry. I'm curious about Dallas. It's like, does AD not want to be in Dallas? Does AD get land? Is there a three team trade where Giannis lands in Dallas and but if Kyrie were healthy, I think that would be more likely. Given that
yeah,
consideration, it seems unlikely. But those are the things that kind of jump out for me. But I mean, you'd think if he's going to go to one of the best 5 or 6 teams in the league.
yeah.
A team that's ready right now and not need a couple years to kind of get there. even as patient as he seems and as grounded as he seems. So it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be fascinating. But I think there's gonna be a lot of elite players moving this summer. I think a lot of elite players are moving this summer, and it's gonna be wild. I think.
Just something that I forgot a minute ago. When Tyler mentioned Phoenix, Dallas, what was the third one? Oh,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I think Dallas is in a different spot just because I think their role players are just so much better at
Sure.
filling their roles. Like they're
Yes,
way closer to being a competent team than Phoenix or Milwaukee, in my
For sure.
opinion.
For
Um,
sure.
but I want to go back to Tyler. When Glenn said San Antonio, Tyler was shaking his head. No, what was that?
I mean, I think San Antonio, like, I'm gonna be honest, it's Wemby and De'Aaron Fox and a bunch of guys who aren't ready to win, who don't help their team win games. Like they're not real difference makers. There's a lot of guys who rely on Wemby's excellence to get them through, which is fine. But like they have a lot of like they're not elite shooters among them. They're not really elite playmakers. Like Chris Paul was way too important to their success this year, considering his age and what he can't do on the floor anymore. And De'Aaron Fox, his shooting touch comes and goes, and when it goes, he has these lows where he's sometimes not as good as you think he is, but not to say he's not a good player. And like him and him and Wimby are okay, but Fox is not the shoot. Like if I'm Giannis, I want to play with shooters, like guys who will pull up from 35 to 40 feet, 35, 28 feet, whatever, and take the over 3 point while also being great, facilitators. Trey Young would be an ideal partner. I haven't brought him up on purpose because I don't think the Hawks have anything that would entice the Bucks to trade with him. They just don't. They don't have the draft capital, and unless they're interested in Jalen, like it's just not. I don't see it. So, um, to me, uh, that's the type of player I want to play with. De'Aaron operates in the same spaces that Giannis does. There's like, and you just signed De'Aaron Fox to a contract that says he's not trade eligible. I was actually thinking it might be behoove Giannis to like wait a year, just because there's going to be like the NBA is in such a flux. Like there's so many of these guys leave their teams only to be in worse or neutral situations. Um, like they where they feel like I gotta leave this team. Like James, I feel like the biggest example is James Harden originally leaving Houston to go to Brooklyn, and everything that happened after that for his career, where then he finally ends up in a good situation for him as a player with the Clippers. But you look at what the Houston Rockets are right now, they could, if they had James Harden, they would be real I feel like in real contentious status because they literally just need a guy to who can shot make and play make at the same time. Fred VanVleet's a good player, but he's overtaxed in that role. You had James Harden, like this Houston team, even though they lack some shooting and all that stuff, like they have so much physical talent like that, they'd be really dangerous with James. But I just think like James is an example. Kyrie Irving as well. I, I can't make it work in Cleveland. I got to go to Boston, and then Boston, not what I thought it was. Like these guys, like Kevin Durant's probably the biggest example where honestly he probably feels like he should have just stayed in OKC. Like you look at the arc of his career. I understand he won the two chips in Golden State, but was it really that bad in OKC? Like I'm pretty sure he's like, we were consistent winners. I've gone on teams that can't win now. Like I'm on the like because of how much it takes to acquire these guys, and in this new CBA market as well, like where they take up so much of the salary, like it's hard
Yeah.
for these teams. I mean, we saw with this playoffs with the Lakers. Like the Lakers have so many holes, and I don't know how they fill them with what the assets that they currently have. Even though they didn't give up that much to get Luka, all things considered, they still gave up Anthony Davis, who they desperately missed in these playoffs. So it's just I think this. what smarter teams are going to see is like, I don't necessarily need a superstar. I just need somebody who's star adjacent. Like Julius Randle on these Timberwolves is like hand in glove fit. It might be the best fit in his career. He, I mean, like you want to talk about taking pressure off of your superstar. Last season, it felt like Anthony Edwards had to drive every single possession, or the Timberwolves offense was just scatterbrain disaster. Now it can be Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle driving to the rim, and all of a sudden it just takes so much pressure off Anthony Edwards as a star. And but you're not asking Julius to be Zion Williamson. You're just asking Julius Randle to be the best version of himself relative to the rest of the talent around him. Like I think these second tier stars are going to be uh, kind of sneakily what the smart teams are going to be looking for, or who are making less money than the max, that they can
It's
help elevate their star player to fit in this current financial environment.
it's funny. I think it's smart for a team to, when there's an affordable price tag for a talent like Luka, to do it. But to do that and then to play the rest of your season with no playable centers. You got Luka, you don't have anybody to play center. I mean, that's what are we doing? You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
it's
they tried
just
to get Mark Williams, not that he was the solution to all their
not
problems, but
not
then
not
not
at all.
getting him kind of really hurt. I mean, he was, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it's it- yeah, that just still, you look back at, how this series went for them, against Minnesota, and they're like playing Luca without a center who can really work in pick and roll, set Luca's the screens that he needs to get the space he needs and to run all that sort of stuff. And it's just, to not have that was just, it just kind of blows your mind. I mean, I guess you look back and you think like, you know, the parallel is like, this house down the street that's way bit nicer than my house, but I can't afford it. All of a sudden, the price drops 200,000. And I guess you're just like opportunistic and stuff like that. But you would think like that. You would think the conversation would be like, we got to get him a center. We got to get him a real center. And I don't know if they, thought Maxi might be able to play eventually, or I don't know, but
They
that's
should
something
have
they
tried
got
to
to,
get Clint.
They,
for sure.
sh- I, yeah, I think they tried.
Yeah,
I think they tried, and the Hawks were
yeah.
like, "No, we have your pick." So too bad. I think that's literally what happened. If we were doing a deep dive on what happened, I would be confident that's why he wasn't bought out. That's why ultimately Clint season was so herky jerky. I think there was back um he was trying to get to the Lakers because to the Lakers because the Lakers needed Clint Capella. And so that's probably somebody they're going to be targeting in the offseason because they need that type of center next. You literally need that type of center next to Luca, or it's just not going to work, particularly on the defensive side of the floor, where it's just too easy to go by him. So yeah, it's going to be so that's it's going to be interesting what the Lakers do going forward, considering they missed out on Mark Williams. Will they still like? Do they? I don't even know what they have to get a Clint Capella because it'll be interesting to see what Capella goes this season, considering the year he had. But I think he still have a market because there's just not that many guys who do what Clint Capella does. Like if we're being honest, everybody's looking for one. The Hawks are looking for one. So it's going to be an interesting market for him just because of his value to the league. Like there's just not that many physical, athletic, lengthy centers who are good rim protectors and good rebounders. Like there just aren't that many. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that with the Lakers.
And any thoughts on award season?
Was happy to see Dyson win. I can never figure out why voters vote the way they do. I mean, I don't really have an opinion on Castle versus Ricochet. Um, I'm not surprised, but I mean, pleasant surprise to see a Hawks player win a major award and get that list approved. So I think he deserved it, and I think there were other deserving guys too. And that I thought was a competitive one, but fun to see him get that one for sure. I thought he deserved it.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on the award? Oh, God.
I thought Dyson had a good argument for Defensive Player of the Year. To me, I said it on the enemies, Brad's podcast, that if Jalen didn't get hurt, I think he wins it. I think he just wins Defensive Player of the Year if Jalen stays healthy, reasonably healthy, or at least plays more than 36 games, which I still can't believe he only played 36 games this season. But like if he plays more, the Hawks defense is just a lot better, and like people would respect really like. I mean, not to say they clearly respected what Dyson did, but I mean there's a very real chance Dyson never has that type of defensive season again. And like to me, it's really frustrating that he didn't get rewarded for that type of effort. Considering what the Hawks asked him to do and what he was doing went above that. So that was unfortunate for him. But you know, most improved is a nice consolation to me. I thought he deserved it over pretty much anybody else because he, you know, uh, even during the season, he got so much better offensively uh, from where he was to start the season. So like it's good to see him be rewarded this year for the type of season that he had because he like it should stand the test of time what he did this year. And like I'm glad that he at least has something he can hang along with the all defensive team that he's going to make first team. I'm happy for him that he has something to hang on his wall that I had one of the best individual defensive seasons of all time, and I basically got a most improved player because of it, even though he did improve offensively.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Tyler there. So uh we're running out of time, and I guess we can just say good night, Bob. Thank you for jumping in.
Good night, Bob.
Bye, Bob.